Halo, Assalamualaikum. Ya, aku ke? Ya, okey je live tu. Tak ada isu ni.
Aku dah tolong dia.
110 sekejap euro.
Ada guys, aku terus guys.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Kepala mana dia?
Last player standing. Long. Switching sides.
Kau melawan Omen. Duelist diorang seorang euro. Santai. Tadi Neon tak nak ikut aku ni. Neon pergi ikut mid dia banyak kali. Kalau dia masuk dengan aku tadi boleh tu. Dua-dua laju.
Bimin.
Heal up, squad.
Ya, ya.
Reload.
Puas. Dua tu.
Killed their own.
Tu Setting.
Healing over here. Spike planted.
Orangnya maksudnya elok lah.
One side, one ego. Sakit weh. Healing tu.
One enemy remaining.
Left elbow.
Bodoh aku lu. Stack 60. Dash.
Nice.
I go fast.
Mana Mon Ish? Oh Ish. Mana Mon?
Nama dia pergi rumah mak mentua dia.
Oh lupa member dia kahwin.
Aku ajak dia dia kata, "Dah kau pergi main amal." Dia halau aku.
Apa hati dia kan?
Okay.
Report dia.
Okay. Dia sejak kahwin ni saya like sikit.
B. Sat.
One One enemy remaining.
Wah. So power you guys. Tak, dia faham ke tak apa aku cakap?
Gila dah Malaysia.
Ya tu.
Tak nak
Dia
aku
tengok
gila.
assist banyak, berapa tambah? Kadang-kadang assist pun banyak kat tambah. Kadang sikit, kill pun kadang banyak, kadang sikit. Tak faham lah.
TP dah? Oman? I blind them. I distract them.
No sound, dude.
Because they are already so uncomfortably cramped
Me.
for 6-foot kings like me. But that's besides the point. A new rotary car? Oh, I gotta know more. The RX-01 concept was a marriage of Mazda's two flagships. It weighed 2,400 pounds, just 200 more than a Miata of the time, 400 pounds less than the lightest FD, and because it was
planted.
so light, Mazda could change things up with the engine. This concept car did indeed have a rotary engine in the name, but the turbos were missing. Yes, Mazda's rotary engine was going back to being naturally aspirated. They called the engine the 13B MSP. MSP stood for multi-side
Last player
clutch, and
standing.
I'll explain what that means in a second. More importantly,
Brazil.
it made 220 horsepower all motor. That's GR86 numbers with 400 less pounds of fat and nearly half the displacement. And if this was a sign of what was to come after the ARC-7, then we were in
Itulah
good hands,
yeah.
right?
Buat
Wrong,
tu.
because this was still 1995 and Mazda was still making the ARC-7 for the rest of the world to enjoy. And with sales dwindling in the US, the RX-01, along with any plans of a successor, were put on the back burner. Of course, speaking of back,
Have you seen this video of this guy busting his?
this is Bob. Bob is a mechanic currently looking for
Morgan mid.
One enemy remaining. Fight down, B. Scaling over here.
Wait.
Like B. Lock it.
Wall.
Reloading. See? Not that scan. Show up now. You really can't. I need this.
Zaidan, kita terus Zaidan.
Kalau Alung dah balik, pagi nanti mesti dia buat live.
Ya tu lepas pagi kan.
Sebab dia Khamis Jumaat dia cuti. Dia tak ada
Dia sekarang,
live.
sekarang tengah cuti Sam kan? Ambil Sam.
Oh yelah. Mid.
Okay, makan.
You will not kill my allies.
for his 10 mil socket.
Ah, yes. The old 10.
And well, Bob is work. When working in
Going B.
Morgan and the old, you could be more year, and Mazda was infinite and his butt. Fast
Kau
forward
beri dia
to
saya.
2000 and Mazda was in a very different place. The 90s were not
Dua ni pakai
kind,
beda tu.
and Mazda was in a tough spot financially.
Ya.
Faham, thank you. Tap screen. Welcome.
Fight planted.
Ya Adib, hi,
Last
welcome.
player standing.
Apa cerita?
So far,
Ya.
dia menang weh.
Enemy remaining.
Thank you korang tak tap screen.
Oh,
They're cats.
Thank you for the support man. Lama tak jumpa.
Long time no enter.
All time no enter for the
Alah 40.
Apa cerita tu?
Man down, but I am okay.
Man down but I'm okay. What happened?
Figure out what they do eventually.
Demon lure dead.
Demam ledet. Demam ni ke? Demam banjir ni ke?
pendek ni pakai lah.
Waka.
Baca lah, faham? Stay safe lah kat sana. Sekarang kan musim kan? Rata-rata semua sakit. Aku pun tu apa ni semua teruk tau. Dia nak pengsan tapi datang kerja juga sebab terpaksa.
Serini okay. Pastu Balik K Aku Tito. BNG UN 2 no Karu. Set up
Spike
Big
planted.
Baggy.
Kantor saya dapat.
Tertepek dia bagi apa sakit mat. Damn. Hi guys, welcome. Ada ambil ubat, ada pergi
Cakap
tak?
aku
Jumpa doktor ke ambil ubat. Paling-paling pun ambil antibiotik kan. Merisaukan tu. Aku ada taruh FYP aku pasal yang macam virus baru tu. Tapi kat US lah.
Last player
Tahu
standing.
kalau betul ke tak?
Ada STNBYDLM Bilik A Ubat.
Okey lah.
Sama Mai.
Kau tanya aku lah kan.
Senang betul.
Kau ambil ubat tu, kau pecah kau ubat kau.
Kau masuk team dia.
Kau. Macam tu. Guarantee syadu. Terus elok. Esok tu kan kau jadi Superman.
Getting tired is optional. Keep the energy up.
Aku pergi.
Lepas tu ubat batuk ambil sebotol. Potong.
JNG and a jar. .I2 Elox Paris. Pass 2 BHS.
Dude, thank you for the tap.
Yes, please raja tu itu elok terus sampai bulan.
Allah patah kaki gua.
Aku ni kat mari dah.
Can you smoke?
Apa salahnya sekali kan? Daripada makan
bodoh
ubat
tak ada
pakai air kan, kita kena try cara baru.
Bodoh lah. One
Direct
stay
terus
inside lah bro.
pergi
What the hell man.
kepala.
Semua duduk kat atas ni buat apa babi? Hotel lah. Aku nak tembak tu nak tembak ni. Pepek.
Suara member aku kuat sangat ke? Kalau kuat sangat bagi tahu tau. Aku boleh silakan suara dia orang. So, aku tengah-tengah dia orang habis sebab live.
Marixia. .Agu Risau Skali T.
Halo, hi Fatin, welcome.
Na Okasia.
Nah, aku risau sekali tengok semua tu apa ni ubat batuk mau ke Pluto.
Dah aku
Ni lah ambil yang
dah
Woods
A
punya, Woods
lah.
punya sedap.
A lah.
Kau ambil Woods kau campur dengan air
Tim
kosong
kita
kan.
semua tadi duduk atas ni.
Sedap sia.
Kita ada sniper tak nak terus. Bodoh sel.
Okay je, okay nice. Aku nak beli RX8 tu nanti.
Pastu attack I said.
Tak you weh.
Marah.
Jadi air apa ni ubat batuk ais. Imagine kau pergi mamak cakap, "Bang, nak
Perlukan
ubat
smoker
batuk
bernama
ikat
Is
tepi
ni."
satu." Macam tu. Sedap oh.
Big.
Bip.
Hailing best day scrum on top is topping.
Ni sedap weh makan time hujan macam ni sedap oh. Aku tengah cari kereta ni kat Malaysia. Aku tengah cari model 2011 punya.
Aku rasa penyakit pun pelik NK sihat.
Under 10.
Ni auto manual dia apa punya ni?
Spike planted.
Type S. Type S saya aku cari. Aku lupa type apa nama dia. Aku kena tengok dari depan lah tak muka depan dia.
Two elbow, one side.
Ai,
Kau tengok kat motor dia.
Cover going out.
Siap
They are
Apa?
standing.
Oh, dalam semua original lagi lah. Nak kat mana depan tak ada.
Cik, thank you for that, cik. Mantap tu, cik.
Ada aku tak nak masuk Ya betul
Tak ada kat mana depan Aku lupa yang aku
Mungkin inilah solusinya.
Oh 2004. Oh lama punya.
Boleh. Betul
Tak payah.
Itulah solusinya.
Ni 8 pasal 85 tu. Model 2007. 4000. Oh betul lah baru 4000 cc. Aku rasa penyakit pun boleh nasihat ke tak nak. Kita terlebih ambil kan. Jadi oh dia ni masuk turbo ni.
Bimen.
Okay, aku faham lah kenapa mahal.
Alih,
Cantik dia custom.
penat betul lah jaga pergi B, pergi A.
Berapa kena? 85.
Aku
Betul dia rebuild everything. Selector. Oh, dia dah ni kan sekali.
Rotate.
Water housing exhaust sporty. Oh,
Okay,
kita dia dah habis ni dia, dah habis custom. Ni kalau kau beli terus sedap ni. Ni worth it. Ni worth it kalau kau nak beli ni. Worth it ke? Maybe not. Maybe a bit more expensive. But personally for the changes that dia dah buat kan. Kau tak fikir banyak tu.
Kurang sangkut.
Kau tinggal nak naik kereta korem tu.
NK Sambing Tito. Maliubak.
Lali ubat. Okay lah. Bye bye. Thank you sebab mai. Thank you so much man. Murah sangat ni.
Spike down
2003.
A.
Oh ni first
30
version tu
seconds
lah.
left.
First version
One
tak
enemy
nak tu.
remaining.
Engine ni tempat terbakar.
120. Let's done. Quick break.
Banyak 2003, 1000. Tak ada yang 2011 ke tu? Orang tak jual 2011 punya.
I'm over there.
Masa. Weh, hold on.
I need this.
Ni kau buat macam RX-7 ni. You do.
Haha, no problem. .c.
Dia buat RX-8 buat badan RX-7.
Masuk lah A weh. Masuk A.
Cantik sia.
Ya aku seorang jaga A. Bak datang.
Oh, see you later. Alright, bye bye. Thank you.
Tolong.
Cantik sia body dia. Menangkap shadow.
Mini.
Oh, lawa. Berapa? 65? 2003. Tapi dia kata 2003 tu.
Kau dah babi.
Auto pun satu.
Spike planted.
Betul lah. Vilset punya kit for sale. 120 to 120. Shush. Dun.
Heal up, Spike.
Baik man.
Dia kenapa nak jual? Oh lah, kita pun dah lebih 20 tahun kan.
Roman, wait.
Enemy
Mantap.
remaining.
Side. Go together. Nice.
Why did I sign up for this shit?
Baik man. Siap.
Nombor dah habis belum?
Ui, babi sikit lagi
11
sial.
tu.
Ush.
Anyone good? Yeah.
I'm out of here.
Ni dah mesti pergi B ni.
Blind.
Jangan ke depan. Aku boleh heal kau. Lepas sikit, duduk sini.
Dah.
eventually by the turn of the century. Ford took advantage of that and now owned 33% of Mazda. They were determined to make them profitable again. And well, profitable usually means fun stuff, aka no sports.
One
cars.
enemy
But the
remaining.
engineers at
Last-
Mazda,
Spike
well,
down.
they
Yeah,
like fun
spike.
stuff. And so a secret team was formed at Mazda to keep the rotary
Yeah,
development alive without management knowing anything. They
30
continued
seconds
developing the 13B MSP engine,
40.
and they built a stretched out Miata to test it. They called that little Miata limo the Gokiburika, or cockroach.
Oh.
But there's only so long that secret meetings and
No,
hushed
no.
whispers can last, and eventually, the board found out. And well, they loved it.
It's
The
left.
Ford influence in management
Last
did the
player
opposite of what most would think. They encouraged the engineers to go out and create something amazing. And so the
Aku
Mazda
itu
engineers
tu
were ready to
baik.
reinvent the rotary sports car once more. What
I
they
can drop.
came up
Yeah.
with was the RX Evolve. Another concept car, but this one should look a little more familiar to you. The car was actually unveiled a year prior to this, but they didn't have Richard Hammond presenting it,
Yang
so
mana
I'm
boleh
jumping
wave
ahead. Loved it.
Aduh.
Anyways, the reception was interesting. Take this Car and Driver article from that year. If the Mazda RX-7 gets
Oh,
reincarnated as the
capai juga
RX Evolve,
20
we
assist.
wouldn't complain.
Yes.
That's positive, I think. But my favorite headline was this
B.
one. The car looked
Maybe
far
B.
from production,
Oh, di
and
ke?
then Mazda put it into production. Journalism was really good back in the 2000s. Anyways, what they meant by that headline was that the production model was officially shown at the 2001 North American International Auto Show, and it was called the RX-8. And well, it looked exactly like the concept car from last year, which was awesome
Spike planted.
because it showed
You
that
will
Mazda
not
was
kill
really
my
committed to
ally.
creating this rotary car of the future. But since the car hadn't hit the streets yet, all people had to base an opinion off of was the spec sheet. The RX-8 retained the rotary power, of course, but the engine was completely
Enemy remaining.
redesigned. As I mentioned earlier, out
GG.
went the RX-7, and in came the naturally aspirated 13.
Defenders win.
15, 16, 20 Kalau basketball panggil triple double.
Triple double.
Menang dah ke?
Triple double, triple.
Menang.
Menang.
The
Tapi bukan macam
MSP
GT, yeah.
Renaissance.
Oh,
I'm
Omni
assuming
dia
Bagus.
Renaissance
one.
stands for
Race
rotary
19 ya.
engines, but I actually just looked that up. But this was
Aku
a
18.
further evolution of what was in that 1995 concept car.
Sekejap
It seemed like Mazda took that time to really perfect that engine. This new 13B MSP kept the same
mengekalkan
1.3 liter capacity, now revved all the way to 9,000 RPM. And just like they initially promised,
Sebuah
it
lagi
sounded like the dream rotary, but
cerita
well,
yang
stick
tamat
around,
di
find out that it was
sini.
actually more of a nightmare. Of course, the rest of the RX-8 was just as worthy of talking about. Admittedly, the production model was nowhere near as small or light as that 1995 concept, but it was still relatively light, weighing in.
Dah kejap guys, saya tengah settle kerja jap. Bagi saya 2 minit.
Santai.
So it's okay. Ya, siapa Imbal yang nama ni?
Ya saya. Kenapa tu?
Okay, nak confirmkan je. Takut salah orang.
Betul. Betul. Kita yang semalam.
Okay. Main Sage yang semalam.
Sage?
Haa. Bukan
Tak. Aku tak message semalam.
Yang message tu lagi seorang isu.
Isu. Oh.
Pro player isu.
Oh, kau yang main
Isu
KO
tu.
tu. Okay. Alright.
Apa? Air apa yang sedap untuk diorder?
Ayah apa sudah.
Malam-malam
Teh
ni ke?
tarik. Sejuk-sejuk ni.
Sejuk-sejuk ni tertarik bro.
Hauskan nasi
Jap aku
kopi
order
panas.
jap. Mamak sebelah.
Cerita yang tamat di sini. Sekejap guys
Sudah. Aduh. Boleh ke aku plate 2 lah malam ni?
Boleh.
Boleh kot.
Jarang tak boleh.
Boleh goal, boleh goal.
Sekejap,
serius.
sekejap. Aku ni leave jap. Sorry korang main dulu tau.
Okay.
Around 3,000 pounds, depending on which trim you picked, and far more practical now, too. Which leads me to the design, which was unique, to put it mildly. It had flowing curves that ran into sharp edges, triangles everywhere because rotary, and perhaps most interesting of all, it had what Mazda called freestyle rear doors, which were basically little half-suicide doors that you could open after opening the front doors, kind of like an old Dodge Ram or F-150. Overall, as a package, the RX-8 truly had the presence of a concept car that somehow made it to production. There was nothing else like it, and when you combined all of that, it was really easy to understand the appeal of this car. But well, that was just the spec sheet. And well, you can't judge a book by its Monroney sticker. Nobody had ever even driven one yet, and the hype was already growing at a stupid rate. And so, of course, Mazda doubled down on the hype when they announced the RX-8 would be the hero car in a blockbuster film, X-Men. Well, X-Men 2, aka X2, which is arguably a better film than the original. Anyways, the hero RX-8 was painted mutant blue with a front grille and wheels that resembled an X and an airplane wing straight out of Fast and Furious. But there was one problem. Mazda's development timeline was not as fast as they hoped. Well, the movie was done before the RX-8 was even production ready. But Mazda had spent $8 million on the movie placement, so they weren't about to just pull out. So, the RX-8 in the movie was just a replica that didn't actually work or drive, supposedly didn't have an engine at all. And as for the driving scenes in the movie, well, the rumor is that it was just a hacked up RX-7 covered in RX-8 body parts. Maybe that's a conspiracy, maybe it was real, but all of the driving scenes are in the dark at night. So, but the message Mazda wanted to send was clear as day. The RX-8 wasn't just a new car from Mazda, it was meant to be the hero car. But you see, everything leading up to this moment, the concept car buzz, the edgy design, the movie tie-in, the spec sheets, it was all just marketing. And it wouldn't be until late 2003 that people actually got something tangible, because that's when the RX-8 was released. And well, what people discovered was complicated. Reviews and testimonies flooded the market over the next months and years, and well, they were all great. I'm not exaggerating when I say this, it was regarded as one of the best chassis available at the time. Absolutely everyone praised the car's handling, including Jeremy Clarkson in his famous Top Gear segment on the car.
Of all the cars I've driven this year, I'm pretty sure this one is the best.
Now, it launched in the US as a 2004 model year, and at launch, 2 versions of the car were available for purchase. A manual version that made 232 horsepower, more than we initially thought, and an automatic. Now, I know, driver's cars and automatic shouldn't be in the same sentence for purists, but it wasn't the slush box that was the main issue. The main issue was that the automatic version only made 197 horsepower, significantly less than the manual. In hindsight, this should have been a red flag of what was to come, because that auto RX-8 was purposefully detuned by Mazda. Why would they neuter their own car like that? Well, it was because Mazda didn't think the gearbox could handle the engine's 9,000 RPM redline, and instead of making the transmission stronger, they just turned down the engine. The redline was only 7,500 RPM instead of 9,000 in the 4-speed automatics. Yeah, I said 4-speed because this auto was a version of the same Jatco 4-speed auto that had been in use since the early 80s. But enough about the transmission, let's talk about the engine. The 13B MSP. MSP, like I said before, means multi-side ports, and when compared to the engine in the RX-7, well, it was pretty different. Take the exhaust ports, for example. On the RX-8, the exhaust ports are on the side of the iron housing. My FD RX-7 has its exhaust ports right on the rotor housing. The RX-8 also had more intake ports, 6 in the top spec of the engine, which meant that this engine could take in more air and more fuel than the old one. Add to that the fact that Mazda pushed up the compression ratio, and it resulted in a 1.3 liter making over 230 horsepower completely NA. That's 178 horsepower per liter, more than any piston engine was capable of. Overall, this was the most refined, most technologically advanced rotary engine that Mazda had ever built. It even won International Engine of the Year in 2003. And after the car's release, it was all pizza parties every day at the Mazda headquarters until the engine started failing. Not long after the release of the RX-8, there were growing reports of engine failure. Cars with just 20 or 30,000 miles losing compressions, struggling to start, some completely dead. It turns out there were a few design flaws that Mazda didn't account for, one of which was the carbon buildup. Now, one of the quirks of the rotary engine is that it's designed to burn oil. And I'm not talking about how your brand new BMW drinks a quart between oil changes because the rings come pre-worn from the factory. I mean, there are actual oil injectors that take oil from your sump and inject it into your combustion chamber like it's fuel. And this is to ensure that there is always oil lubrication on all the seals inside of the rotary. Combine that with the fact that rotary engines run far hotter than piston engines, and the fact that they are tuned to run more fuel in order to cool down those high temps and prevent pre-ignition, and you get a recipe for a whole lot of carbon. The carbon buildup in the exhaust would get so bad that it would clog up and destroy catalytic converters. And failed cats would lead to more heat, which would lead to more carbon and more failed spark plugs and coils, which would lead to misfiring, which would destroy your fragile apex and side seals. And as soon as those were gone, well, your little rotary engine would be pronounced dead. The best part? This was the first issue and later led to one of the many recalls of the RX-8. The next issue for the first model year was that the factory oil injection rate was too low because emissions. Burning oil is bad for the planet, go figure, but this engine was quite literally designed to burn oil. So reducing the amount of oil injected meant a severe lack of lubrication, thus wearing out your seals twice as fast as they would in, let's say, an RX-7, which eventually led Mazda to announce a recall to flash the RX-8 ECU to inject more oil. Then the ignition coils would fail randomly, making your car idle poorly, less low-end torque, ruin drivability, so Mazda redesigned the ignition coils a couple years later. And then there's the automatic engines. Wait, no, automatic engines? You mean automatic transmission, the same ones that we talked about earlier that couldn't handle all the RPMs, right? No, my friends. The engines in those auto cars, the ones that made less power, well, not only did it rev to a paltry 7,500 RPM, it was also a totally different design, with only 4 intake ports, as opposed to the manual cars, which, like I mentioned earlier, had 6 intake ports, with the extra 2 opening up at higher RPMs. Now, this wouldn't be a problem in most cases. There's plenty of cars out there where the lower trim has a slightly worse engine, except the best way to mitigate carbon buildups was to give that little rotary an Italian tuner, aka a right good wall all the way up to 9,000 revs. So, the auto cars were lazier engines that couldn't even reach the required high RPMs, and the auto trans programming would keep it at a low RPM, which meant the perfect storm of high heat and high carbon buildup, which toasted engines at a significantly higher rate than manual. Mazda later had to remedy this by making both transmissions have the 6-port engine, which also meant that Mazda had to put in a better automatic transmission. transmission in 2006. This one is a 6-speed finally. Now the engine in the 6-speed auto was still rated for less horsepower in that config, 212 horsepower to be exact, but regardless, the updated engine had far fewer problems than the old 4-port. Now, this is all getting to be a lot. There's so many variables and so many factors, and I should mention, I'm just talking about the US market right now. When you look overseas, it's even more. Japan got 5-speed manuals with the 4-port engine, and if you wanted the version we got in Japan, it was called the Type S. They had their own combination of issues and recalls. Mazda was basically playing whack-a-mole at this point, trying to fix all the different issues affecting all the different versions of the RX-8. But eventually, pretty much all of the issues of the car were remedied with a mid-model revision for 2009. It was basically a factory reset for the RX-8. The car got a new oil pump design along with a third oil injection port in each housing. It got new catalytic converters that were less likely to get blocked up and overheated, which helped fight side seal failures, and it got redesigned.
Don't trust your eyes uncritically. People only see what they want to, so don't be your own fool.
Boom, 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 boom. What do I want to do with the resin? Honestly, I don't even know.
Mission coils to what Mazda did basically everything they could to address the RX shortcomings. And well, they didn't just stop there. The amazing chassis that all the reviewers raved about, well, this one was even more raved, with sharper suspension and handling. Altogether, the refreshed car was faster, more refined, more reliable.
A bitter pill to swallow. Mind the side effects. Take it.
Rain outlines your fate. What? You poor lost lamb with one heart. It all adds up.
R2s were all business, pure sports car. So the announcement of the RX-8 R3, well, that was nothing to take lightly. Except, well, Mazda kind of took it lightly, because the RX-8 R3 was not nearly as raw or driver-focused as the old R1 and R2. The only performance mod was the adjustable Bilstein shock. The rest of the upgrades were cosmetic. Caros, bigger wheels, different wings, stuff like that. Even still though, you have to give the RX-8 some grace because this was the best it had ever been. It only took about 6 or 7 years. It was finally concluded. There was just one problem. The damage was already done. Those first few model years saw opinions go from best car ever to kill it with fire. The RX-8 had a reputation as high maintenance, unreliable. And the cherry on top was that Mazda USA had to announce a warranty extension program that covered all 2004 to 2008 RX-8. It gave owners an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty, which was
A bitter pill to swallow. Remember, health comes.
For the everlasting forest.
To say that Mazda spent somewhere from $160 to $200 million fixing the car. $160 million, all because a little $16 side seal would fail and render the engine useless. The RX-8 was a financial blunder for Mazda. And no matter how good the car became, there was just no
Seems like an emergency.
Huh? Leave this place with one heart. Can't hide the truth.
So finally, in 2011, Mazda announced the RX-8 would be discontinued globally. Last unit rolled off the production line in June of 2012. No successor announced. And if I'm being honest, I really feel like the death of the RX-8 was even sadder than the death of the RX-7 that came before it. Because Mazda tried really hard to position the RX-8 as this driver's car that you could live with every day. A car that could do more than the RX-7 ever did. The 4-door layout, different capabilities.
Mind the side effects. Remember, health comes.
Let me weave you a bow. Forest, protect us. Guy the frost. No more lies. Yeah.
RX-8's failure was so big that it forced an entire reset. Now, when you think of Mazda, you probably think of Sky-active technology, super high compression ratios, ultra-efficient 4 cylinders. Well, now its performance halo car is the Miata, which is a great car, but not an RX. I should say, however, Mazda hasn't abandoned the rotary completely. They've teased rotary-powered range extenders for electric cars and unveiled several rotary-powered concepts, but they stay as just that, concepts. These days, if you know your way around a garage, you can pick up an RX-8 for dirt cheap on marketplace and save it, but if you're a sane human being, the RX-8 stands as a cautionary tale, proof that even a legacy as iconic as the Mazda Rotary is still just a house of cards. If you like this video, then you'll
Mind the side effects. Seems like an emergency.
No, my sword! You poor lost lamb, for the everlasting. Yeah. I sprayed on myself, even when I'm not going out.
Oh, okay. Relax.
Taking a turn for the.
Huh? Witness the power. Leave this place. By the frost moon, it all adds up.
Siapa December 1? Shit, Forza. Oh, sosial pun ada 49. Ui. Walau weh. Tutun tun alai.